What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg with a look at the Dell Venue 87000. This is a new Android tablet that has some interesting characteristics, namely that it's got a very thin bezel, at least on three sides of the tablet. It's also the thinnest tablet currently, right now at 6mm, that's thinner than the iPad Air 2. Now this is 8.4 inches with a Super AMOLED display. I believe this is the same display in the Tab S. It has the same resolution at 1600 by 2560, good for 359 pixels per inch. So this is one of the few AMOLED tablets available right now beyond the Samsung Tab S, but of course this is running close to stock Android. Right now it's Android 4.4, but will be updated to Android 5 in the future. Now this is powered by the Intel Atom Z3580 processor. That's a quad-core clock to 2.3 GHz with a PowerVR G6430 GPU. In terms of storage, we have 16 gigs internally, but you can expand storage thanks to MicroSD up to 512 gigs. We also have 2 gigs of RAM. On the back, we have an 8 megapixel camera, as well as a 2 megapixel camera on the front. Now, another interesting feature here is Intel's RealSense 3D technology, which makes use of 2 720p cameras on the back, in addition to the standard 8 megapixel camera. Now, those 2 720p cameras are just there to record depth information of your photographs. Alright, so let's go ahead and unbox our tablet here. We're going to have to cut some tape along the side to slide out the packaging. Alright, just slides right out. There we go, the tablet's sitting in its cradle. We're going to pick up the tab here to lift it out. There it is. Right away I can feel just how thin it is. It's got a nice metal body too, so it feels really rigid and cool to the touch. Still wrapped in plastic here, so let's go ahead and peel that off. It should slide right out. Now before we take a close look at the tablet, let's go and take a look at the accessories they've included. So pretty minimal packaging here. Pop off the tray. Inside we'll find our power adapter. So we have a Dell branded power adapter with a little piece of plastic protecting the glossy surface on the back where the USB port plugs in. So you can see down here, this is a 10-watt power adapter, which is necessary with a larger battery for quicker charging. Of course, we also need a micro USB charging cable. This is just micro USB 2.0. And we have very light paperwork here, just a quick start guide, as well as our safety warranty and regulatory information. Now let's take a close look at the tablet. First thing I'm going to do here is boot it up. There's a power button on the upper left side here. Going to tap and hold that. Hold it for a good chunk of time here until it boots up. The Dell Venue does come with 20 gigs of Dropbox space for 1 year for free. So all you have to do is log into your Dropbox account or create one. Next up, you'll be prompted to log into Dell Gallery, which is a way of syncing all your photographs from your Dropbox, your Facebook, Twitter, Picasa accounts all in one place. So we can sign in with our Google account if we prefer. And from here, you can link your available accounts. Next up is Dell's preferred applications. These apps will automatically install on your tablet, or you can unselect them if you prefer them not to be installed. Next up, we can name our device, click Finish, and we're good to go. Now let's take a close look around. So again, for $400, you do expect kind of a premium tablet experience, and that's what you get here with this nice AMOLED display, high resolution. It looks great with those deep inky blacks and those bright vivid colors. Of course, this is 4.4.4, so it's not 5.0, but that is coming. So hopefully by the time you get yours, it will get 5.0. So of course, you can swipe down from the left to get to your notification panel, swipe down from the right to get to your quick setting toggles, which do have some unique features to the Dell experience here. Of course, we do have landscape orientation and portrait orientation. And this is a premium tablet, so we have this nice all-metal construction, very nice and rigid, with a nice finish on it. Feels really smooth in the hand, and again, super thin here, very nice. Toward the bottom, you have this nice glass back panel, which houses the camera. Up here, you can see we have those dual cameras. Those are 720p cameras that work with Intel's RealSense technology for 3D imaging. I'll explore exactly what that means here. Of course, we have lots of branding back here. We have Dell as well as Intel inside because we are running Atom processors, and this is pretty much kind of a platform for some Intel technologies. Down below, we have a set of stereo speakers hidden in this grill, so there's one on each side. We also have our front-facing 2 megapixel camera, which again is at the bottom of the tablet in this sort of orientation, but of course you can just flip it around and the tablet will reorientate the entire OS for you. So now the camera is toward the top and so are the speakers, but of course it feels a little awkward here with such a thin bezel to handle. When you're in landscape orientation, again you can grip it on the side with the bezel, and because the tablet is fairly lightweight and thin, it's pretty comfortable to do this, but of course you can also swap it over to the right if you prefer, and you can still handle the tablet in any orientation here. There's still enough room around it with that nice square edge to grab onto. Now again, this is the thinnest tablet on the market today at 6mm. Now it doesn't look as thin as something like the iPad just because it has those square corners or those square edges here. But it's got a nice build here, so you can see the buttons here are nice and square and feel pretty tactile here. So we have our volume up, power on and off, as well as our single microphone down here. Now we do have a micro SD card slot, and this does support up to 512 12 gigs here. Pops out just like a SIM tray on a phone here. Just use a SIM ejection tool or a paper clip. Pops right out and you can load your card in and pop it back in. Now the tablet is mostly made out of metal and glass, but this front panel down here is plastic. You can see that it wraps around toward the edge here and continues on the back with this glass back panel. Everything is put together really nicely with no gaps or seams. Feels really nice in the hand and feels pretty high quality. So if you look down below, you can see we have the headphone jack along with a micro USB 2.0 charging port. You can see that headphone jack is right next to the camera. Now if you hold the tablet in landscape orientation, of course you have to place your thumb near the speaker grills. But because we have stereo speakers on either side here, it's pretty difficult to muffle them unless you're really holding onto it like so. But otherwise, if you hold it kind of naturally with a kind of a light grip, you're not going to muffle the speakers. So this is Android KitKat, so it is a little outdated. I'm not going to go through a lot of details here. Hopefully with 5.0, we'll see a more updated interface. Now it's fairly lightweight. The skin is fairly lightweight, so you can swipe down on the left to see your notifications, swipe down on the right to see your quick access toggles, and you can see we have some customization here for the Dell experience, but otherwise it's pretty close to stock. Of course, you have your home button. You can swipe up on your home button to launch into Google Now, which works like you expect. We have our recent app switcher, which again is fairly close to stock. You do not have a dismiss all option here, but you can swipe up to close them. Now, although we're pretty close to stock Android here, Dell has added a few things to take a look at. One of them is My Dell, which is under your quick settings. This is basically a quick sort of diagnostic app. So it tells you your internal storage charge, your CPU usage, and RAM usage. You can see what version of Android you're on right now. You can see when your warranty expires, and you can also run a quick checkup. You also have these advanced checks, which allows you to run a diagnostic on basically everything on the tablet, from your battery charge to your SD card to your let's see, audio. So you can test your speakers. You can see you can test whether your left and right speakers are working normally, or your microphone is working normally, your headset, and that sort of thing. So it's kind of interesting to have around. You can also see your touch panel calibration. So for example, it basically tells you to trace around the grids here to test the calibration of the touch panel. And it looks like everything works properly. We also have a built-in equalizer here called Max Audio, and this is available again under quick settings. Now you can turn this on and off, but again, this is an equalizer which you can adjust manually. It's mostly automatic. It's definitely not the best looking app, especially on this high resolution display, but you can tap things to turn on max bass, max treble, etc. You can adjust them manually. You can go to your equalizer and adjust them, and of course you have lots of other settings, and you can turn this off entirely. This is also available under the notification panel. It has a little widget here, so you can jump between for example, music, gaming, movies, or you can just turn it on and off. Now we also have a 3D wallpaper that's kind of similar to Apple's parallax effect, but it's definitely not as responsive or quick. There's definitely some performance issues with it, but you can select this by tapping and holding on the screen here and selecting one of your available wallpapers. So you can see we have Dell Live wallpapers. If we select it, we can select a number of these sort of 3D wallpapers here. So for example, I can select this one, and if I move the tablet around, you can see it kind of gives you a 3D effect. Now we also have something called Dell Cast, which works with a separate dongle that Dell sells. Now I checked to see if this works with Google Cast. It does not, so this is a separate component that you have to buy in order to enable Dell Cast, which allows you to mirror content or your screen to an HD TV. Now our settings panel is also fairly close to stock with a few things added. So for example, under here we have flip to silence. So basically what will happen is if you're playing back music or something like that, or if you start receiving an alarm or some other notification, all you have to do is place the tablet down face first and it silences it. Now taking a look at storage, you can see how much we have left out of that 16 gigs that are available internally. Of course, you can expand storage with an SD card slot. So you can see that we have used about half of it. I have taken some videos and photos, but that really only amounts to about 306 megs, so not too much. The rest is taken up by apps, media, and that sort of thing. We also have our multi-user mode, so you can add additional users, which is standard with Android KitKat. You also see we have sensor calibration, which allows you to calibrate your gyroscope. Basically, all you do is lay your tablet flat on the surface and run the calibration, and it does it automatically. Now, as I mentioned, this is really a platform for Intel technologies. Another feature we have here is Intel Smart Video. So one of the features here is smooth video. So basically it enhances the frame rate of a video. So it makes things look like it's higher frame rate than it natively is. So for example, a 30 frame per second video will suddenly look like a 60 frame per second video. We also have enhanced video, which will improve the, reduce the noise, enhance color and contrast to make video look a little more vibrant. Now, the other real notable feature about this tablet is Intel's RealSense 3D technology, which is again using those two 720p cameras on the back to record depth information. So in order to use that feature, you have to enable depth snapshot here out of these modes. You can see we have single, video, panorama, and burst. Depth snapshot is the one we want to take a look at. And you can see up here we actually have a live view of those dual cameras on the back in addition to the main camera. Now the strange thing about this camera is that if you want to grip your tablet using what I would consider to be the normal hand grip, you block the camera. So you have to be pretty careful. You have to hold it on the edges so you don't obstruct one of the cameras. In fact, if you obstruct one of the cameras on the back here, it does warn you and it does show you that one of those cameras is blocked and that depth photograph feature will not work. So anyway, you can see you can tap on here to expand it or not, and you can go ahead and snap your photograph by tapping the icon down here. So what it's doing is recording the depth of the image, and you can go back and change the focus later. So let's go ahead and do that. You can only do this under Dell's Gallery app here. So with a depth snapshot, I can tap anywhere on the scene to refocus on different points of that scene, or I can do so manually just by swiping up on the screen here and adjusting depth of field based on distance, and it does it pretty quickly. Now ultimately, with all this hardware and software and technology built into this tablet, the images are still pretty poor with this camera. Now in terms of camera quality, it's pretty standard stuff. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but it gets the job done. Camera stills are well exposed with good color reproduction, with quick autofocus and pretty sharp details. It does degrade considerably in low light conditions and begins to lose some color and saturation. Now in terms of video, the best we can do here is 1080p HD video. We do have continuous autofocus and it does a pretty decent job, although it can be a little jarring. Exposure tends to jump around kind of abruptly, but otherwise it's a fairly decent camera without optical image stabilization or any software stabilization. Alright guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, testing out that 2 megapixel front-facing camera, which is good for 1080p HD video, but as you can see, it does a pretty bad job. It's underexposing, it's washing out the colors, and it looks pretty grainy. I have a bright window out here, and it's still not providing enough light. Now just to give you an idea of what a competitor's camera looks like under the same conditions, here is the iPad Air 2, which as you can see does a much better job exposing the scene, reproducing color, also has a better microphone, so much better optics, a much better sensor, and better processing. Now if we take a look at our Geekbench 3 results, you can see that although we're using very different chipsets on the Tab S and Dell Venue, they do deliver pretty similar results here, especially on the single core score. They're nearly identical. That's interesting because the Tab S is clocked at 1.9 gigahertz versus the Venue's 2.33 gigahertz. Now the Tab S is faster on the multi-core score here at 2849 versus 2427. Now in terms of real-world performance, the Dell Venue isn't notably fast or smooth. It does have some tendency to lag, and some of the software that Dell has put on here is noticeably unstable and crashes, especially the camera software, which has been extremely unreliable during my testing. Hopefully software updates will fix this in time, but otherwise the system itself, especially stock Android, is pretty smooth. Now in terms of speaker quality, it's actually really good with these front-facing stereo speakers. Now although it's only on one side of the tablet, it does not sound lopsided, so it does a really good job sort of compensating for that, so I'm really impressed overall. Now ultimately I think the Dell Venue is mostly being sold on its unique design, and again it's really nice looking with that all metal construction with the glass trim pieces, and everything is made really well. It's also nice to see that near bezel-less display, at least on 3 sides of it. But ultimately I think it does detract from its usability. Now in the end, it's really difficult to use this tablet without unintentionally touching the screen. There is no form of palm rejection or finger rejection like you would see on something like the iPad Mini or the iPad Air 2. They've also placed the cameras right on the hand grip, so it's pretty easy to unintentionally block them, which makes the tablet particularly hard to use when you want to take photographs or video. They've also placed the speakers right on the hand grip, so it is pretty easy to unintentionally muffle at least part of the speaker system. Now I think it's worth pointing out that the Galaxy Tab S 8.4 inch, which is also the same screen size and screen resolution, is shorter than the Dell Venue. And that's because it also has really thin bezels, but it doesn't have the same dramatic design language of the Dell Venue 8, but the Dell Venue 8 has a really large chin bezel, which is larger than the entire bezel space of the Galaxy Tab S 8.4 inch. You also have to remember that the Galaxy Tab S has off-screen Android keys versus the on-screen keys on the Dell Venue, which takes away some screen real estate. So in the end, the Dell Venue 8 7000 is a standout tablet for a number of reasons, including its unique design, all-metal construction, as well as great stereo front-facing speakers and that beautiful Super AMOLED display, which is one of the better displays you can get on a tablet right now. Less impressive are the cameras and less useful is the 3D technology, which is built into the hardware, which seems to be a bit overkill for a feature that doesn't add a lot of value. But ultimately, it's kind of nice to have the excellent display of the Galaxy Tab S 8.4 inch and a nice metal body with a near stock Android experience. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.